All right, well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Cybrary's podcast. Today, we will be talking about how to retain highly sought-after tech talent. In the building with me today, we have Katie Wandtke, the head of people here at Cybrary, Ken Gilmour, the CEO of Knogin, and Sol, the marketing director from Knogin as well. So take it away, guys.
Good stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, this is a topic that interests me a lot. And I often see debates online. So, one of the things, I guess, which is the hardest one is, let's say if you posted a job online on LinkedIn and you get 100 applicants and you've only got one role to fill. How do you get through all those CVs? And I mean, what's the best way to screen applicants?
Mm-hmm. I would say what I do when I'm first talking to the hiring manager about what role we want to fill is I talk about the non-negotiables. And so when we're looking at our CVs and all of our applicants, how much of the non-negotiables do they fill? Do they fill all three of them? Do they fill 2.5, almost 3? If they fill one non-negotiable, then it's likely they're not going to pass through that initial resume screen. And it's really kind of determining, when I'm having my first conversation with them, do they hit the bare minimum of what we would consider for that role? Or does their CV even show that they would be able to hit that bare minimum?
It's a good point, actually. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, like one of the things I had, that I was thinking about as well, so let's say someone with a college degree, right? College degree is mandatory. But what about, someone who's really good at what they do and they're about 2 or 3 months away from graduating? So they'll have a degree in a couple of months, but they don't have it right now. Would that disqualify them?
Not at all.
No?
And for a lot of our jobs here, we don't even require a college degree. It's really just dependent on their experience, what they've been able to accomplish either on their own or, working equivalent work experience is completely fine. But no, I mean, looking forward, and if you're able to start a conversation earlier with a candidate, and even if you're planning 3 months out, it's great. Get that conversation going because you don't want to lose out on a candidate or start a really great relationship too late.
So are your non-negotiable more of a technical skills then, or is it, I don't know, certain years of experience, or what could be there?
Yeah, it could be, it's completely dependent on the role and completely dependent on what the hiring manager views as the non-negotiable. So one that comes up pretty frequently for me is, have they worked in a startup experience or environment before? Have they had that familiarity with the rapid scale or any kind of ambiguity in their role? Part of what we're finding is that we need some more process champions, so people who can identify where a process needs to get implemented or improved, and they can champion it and move it forward rather than kind of waiting for someone to bring it up. So that's been a very popular one is, those kind of game changers. Also, it could be years of experience. Sometimes it is really required, we need someone with at least 5 years in this because there's no way anyone with fewer than 5 years of experience are going to be able to achieve the goals that we need for this role.
That's very cool, yeah. So, I mean, as far as actually getting, employees and finding them in the right places as well, one of the things that I found, I think is great is, this community called OWASP, the Open Web Application Security Project. So they would generally have, chapter meetings regularly and things like that. And it attracts people who like cybersecurity. And I just find it great. Now, the thing is, obviously, you can't sponsor it because it's I don't think it's a charity, but it's an event that doesn't have advertising in it, right? That's kind of against the ethos of it. Mm-hmm. But it's good for kind of talent hunters and things like that. So I'm not sure if you've ever kind of tried that. No, that approach. So we find it actually quite good because, it's people who are enthusiasts about the topic that are going voluntarily, maybe, I don't know, maybe some of them want to go for the pizza, but I think most of them want to go for the talk.
No, that's awesome.
And it's a great way to find them as well.
But where are they? Where are they located for the most part?
Chapters are all over the world.
Yeah.
So actually our CTO in Knogin is a chapter lead for Costa Rica.
Okay.
So he does some conferences every now and then as well. And it's just, I find it a great way to find talent. But I mean, are there other ways that you find them other than, online websites and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say referrals are obviously a big one. DC is a still a relatively small tech community. Like you're going to find people that know people that have done similar work and, similar startup-y kind of like industries. So definitely we take referrals as much as possible. I mean, meetups are a great way to seek help. But then, sometimes, it depends on the role and depends on how fast you need it filled. Not going to lie, sometimes we need recruiters.
That's true.
They definitely fill a really strategic role when we're kind of, really, really in a tight spot. So
that's very good. Yeah. So, I mean, another one that I like to use is, people I've worked with before in the past, so if I've worked in another location, I know generally what the talent pool is like. Even if I've left it a few years ago, I know how they used to hire and how they, I guess, go through CVs and things like that. I find that's a good way of poaching. That makes me sound like a real meanie, but sometimes,
friendly poach.
Yeah, just nobody would ever do that to me at Knogin, and if they do, I'd be very sad. But otherwise, that's how I do it sometimes for organizations where I had worked before as well.
No, we do recruit. Marketing team has been using that as well at Knogin, just friends in common, contact in common, but also because I think it gives you, I mean, if you're friend with someone, you're sharing same values, I guess, or you have kind of a common field. So if their friends are also, I mean, the friend of my friend are my friends. So it also gives a higher, I guess, probability to have people that will fit.
It's a known, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That
You're not
will
really
fit.
trying them out because you've known before that they were good. Yeah, makes sense. So, I mean, the other thing about retaining staff as well is the community feel. So that's very 50-50. A lot of people think, well, the community, we're a family, and that's just cheesy, and some people don't like it. Other people think, well, look, we really are kind of like a family, and I really love working here. I mean, what's been your experience with that?
I don't necessarily like to say that we're a family, because I think that we are professionals, we're coworkers, we take care of each other in a completely different way. And so we all have a responsibility in that. And so I think that, having a very positive relationship and working relationship where you can, talk to people and ask for help especially is really great. But I would say staying away from kind of family, because that's always kind of like, you're so close that it kind of borderlines over that professional line. And so I like to kind of keep that kind of reference apart.
And that's a good point as well, and I think a lot of the family thing issues is that people tend to get into cliques as well, and that's hard to control as well, because then it's us versus them, and then they start fighting against each other for no reason other than they're not in the same clique.
There's also the expectation of a work-life balance with that, and so like with work-life balance, if you kind of try to make everybody feel like they're a family, no, you're a family, you have to stay late tonight, you have to do this thing with me on the weekend, you have to do that because we're a family, we're doing this together. That can really affect how people's, they view their engagement. It can cause burnout pretty quickly. And then also, it's just, again, like that blurring of the lines of like what's professional versus social.
I don't know if there is maybe also a cultural background around there, because if I'm thinking about us at Knogin, people will very easily tell you, that's my second family. I mean, we hear these quite a lot though, and it's really just very natural things. I mean, we're based in Costa Rica, so Latin American culture. And it's so natural for, even I include myself, just thinking about, like, that's, we have all, it's a bit weird then we're saying it's not like healthy, but it's really kind of having this family relationship where you also have conflicts and you need to talk about it and you need to communicate about it, and how can you build something, maybe because we're on a kind of a very early stage as well as a company. So you can't, it takes so much time and money to fire someone, look for someone else, that you want to make sure you first find the good fit. And then once you get with the good fit, just fight for any little battles or complexity you could have so you can keep people on board and you can make them grow. So I think the advantage of having a startup is to give people the sense of ownership, right? Because people can own stuff, but when you have departments, departments are more scalable and it's better for the business. But in general, it doesn't really feel the same because there's not really ownership. It's like
the boss kind of owns that. One of the things I guess is that we try to consciously do, which I haven't really seen many people doing it. I'm not sure if you do it here in Cybrary as well, is we plan events during working hours and the working week. So, if you want to go out for pints on a Friday evening after work, that's okay. But the official work party will probably be a lunchtime on a work day, and, we'll close down the office or whatever and just get everybody together for that event, and I think it means that people will have more community because, they can all attend, because maybe you have kids at home and you've got to get home on time, or, you've got jiu-jitsu at night and, you just want to go to your class. You don't want to spend your time with work colleagues. It doesn't mean you don't like them. It's just you have a personal life too.
No, that's a great point. We have lunch brought in every Tuesday and Thursday, and that gives people a chance to have lunch together and be here without having to rush out and go grab something and come right back with a very short window. So I think that is a little bit of that. The events that we've had, for the most part, have been a little bit closer to the end of the day, but I completely hear you. I have 2 little kids at home, and I would love it if some of our events started at 3, so then I could actually stay for a good 2 hours before I have to leave. But yeah, I think that's awesome and something that we can definitely consider moving forward. And I might steal from your playbook on that.
Yeah,
fantastic! Wow, this is the first time I've ever heard this.
Thank you.
Fantastic! I feel so great now. I think I'll just go.
Let me ask you actually though, Tommy, because you were just there. You were at Cybrary a few months before me. Mm-hmm. Did we ever do anything that was a little bit more like earlier in the day?
Not that I can really think of. Not really anything during the day. It was more kind of like happy hours after the end of the day, maybe starting at 4 or something like that. But now that, we've kind of grown and, we have a lot more people working here, we've started to do kind of day outings, per team. So a team will go out and just kind of do whatever they want for the day. One people, I think they went to an escape room or something like that, just to, get out of the office, spend some, quality time with your teammates, and kind of create some bonds. And, maybe the next time somebody asks you to do something, you're a little more willing because, you've kind of had those connections and stuff outside of the office, during the office time, which is nice.
Yeah, our marketing business development team went to a golf range.
Yeah, went to Topgolf.
Our engineering team went out to the racetracks and, got to do little stuff like that. But yeah, it really is team-based as opposed to
the
everyone.
Whole company.
Yeah.
I guess when you're big enough, Cybrary's bigger than us. That's what you're trying to say, well, that's okay. I'll accept it, for now.
Yeah.
Cool. So, one of the other things is, I guess, the diversity and fair payment thing. That's another thing that we focus on a lot. And I actually only realized about a month ago that we have exactly 50-50 male and female at Knogin. It was like, oh my God, how did we achieve that? So I was quite proud of that. I'm still not sure how exactly we got there. But I think...
because I'm here in your company.
That's
my
I think
mission.
It's probably to do with Saul. But that was... I thought that was quite an achievement. But,
it's pretty amazing. I think that was also on a podcast we talked about. But I think it's because the people in the company, and that's one of the thing I said on the previous after episode, it's that when you have the top management that is sharing this vision, and including to this top management, you have employees that are also really engaged with the idea of achieving this fairness between male and female employees. There is a very high probability that you're going to achieve it, because I'm definitely very aware of that. So I'm trying my best to make sure that we're having this inside the company. But if I didn't have the support of the HR department, of our CTO or CEO, I could not make it by myself only. So I think it's people that are in the company as well as the top management that is giving this vision from the very beginning.
And absolutely, that's what's happening here too. That's a big thing that, when I was brought on, we definitely talked about how we can increase diversity here, how we can make sure that we are kind of being a much more inclusive workspace overall. And I think we've done pretty well overall. And I think,
you're doing very good.
And I'm very proud of it, and I want to keep it going and get it better.
But it's exactly, you're
mm-hmm.
engaged with these topics, mm-hmm. but if you go to the top board management, they will hear you and they will support what you're doing. So that's, to me, the key of success.
So you think it comes from the board down and it's not directly hiring managers that...
No, definitely. I think it's come from the board, because if I didn't have the support that we have at Knogin from the board, and if I have a concern or something about that, it will, having top management level that are concerned and they're aware about these bias, it's pretty amazing. And then you can talk for it and through it, and you will achieve great things, I guess.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of internal bias as well that needs to, I guess part of training within the organization should also cover kind of internal biases as well, based on specific cultures, depending on where you are as well. And it's something that's not generally done, but it's incredibly helpful because, definitely having 50-50, I see huge performance increases, and then we combine that with other things like working from home. So, if you're a parent and you need to take care of your kids, you can still work and you can still do really well, but you're more determined to keep your job and do things well if you have that ability, I think.
Yeah, and that kind of leads back to kind of the overall thing is retention, and kind of what I was thinking of is how do you kind of differentiate, especially in like the tech sector, is like the difference between like a benefit and an actual benefit you're giving your employees and like what many would think of as like a perk. So like working here, we get free lunch like 2 days a week. We have a very nice office. We have snacks and drinks and stuff, which like many people would consider a perk, but a lot of people think that that is a benefit of working at that place. How do you mitigate that, when you're looking for new employees and trying to bring new people on, trying to, what they might consider, more important to them?
I sell the culture. And so like a big part of my role here is, as I'm recruiting, because it really is kind of like that piece of reverse sales, right? And so when people are talking about, well, I should first say that like that is the most common question I get asked during the interview process is tell me about the culture there. And so, I usually answer it along the lines of like, yeah, we definitely have like the cold brew on tap and we have lunch twice a week and we have all this stuff. But like I said, the main part of what makes us special and what informs our culture are these things. And I go through what our values are actually during that point. And that usually is kind of like you hear a little like click in there. I can't even describe it. It's like, yeah. And usually, even though that's at the end of the conversation, because that's at the point where they're asking me the questions, you end the call with them on this high note up here. As opposed to just being like, they're like every other tech company I'm interviewing with right now. And so to really kind of push that, I think is a big part for us. And I don't know about you all.
I think that's great as well. You definitely have to run these things based on your company values and your mission. And one of the interesting things, I was having a shareholder meeting one time, and one of my shareholders is very direct and very good. Actually, of course, they're all very good, but this particular one is very direct and good. He just said to me, straight out, so if I went to any developer outside on the floor and asked them what your company mission was, would they tell me? I'm like, I'd like to think they would, but I can't say with all certainty that they would. And it's something definitely that we need to kind of work on to ensure that people know what our mission is and what our values are and why we're doing things in a certain way. It's not just you're here for a job. There is something that you're here for. It's a purpose, and we want to achieve something, and that's why we are here as an organization. So I guess that kind of leads into my next question as well is, how do you encourage camaraderie and encourage people to, I guess, work together and not get into those cliques, like we're all here for one common goal. Like what's your way of doing that?
Well, I think that the best one is that everybody has a cleaning duty rotation.
Oh, very good.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, wow.
Yeah.
Didn't know that.
And so it's funny because our catering company, they always say, well, we can send somebody back to clean up every lunch. And I'm like, no, we're not going to do it. I'd rather have everybody have that rotation. And it's a grounding piece. It's like, no, like every single team is going to help out and, see what it's like to clean up lunch every week, every 6 weeks, I think is the rotation right now. But they're responsible for things that kind of keep us organized, and so everybody has that common goal too. Like if somebody leaves stuff in the sink, it's like very commonly it's like a member of the dev team will say, who did this, and like
you'll see it pop up in Slack and just
and so it's not on me, I'm not the one sitting there kind of like wrangling that piece of our culture and camaraderie. It's like the other people are kind of like reminding each other like, no, we are all part of a team, we're supposed to be taking care of our things together, and so do your part.
That's great. Actually, I noticed last night, so we went out for beers, everybody, and at the end of the night, I was like, I'll go and pick up some beer cans, and like, oh, there's literally no beer cans. Everybody has put their own beer can in the bin, and there's no plates or anything. They just all did it. So I guess I know now why.
Yes, Katie's done a very good job of setting all of that up and making sure it's kind of everyone's position. So, I mean, you're not, if you're the one person who always seems to be cleaning up, you just kind of get fed up after a while. But when you see every team doing it, and I mean, it goes all the way up to the executive team. I mean, Ryan and Ralph will be in there cleaning out the dishwasher and stuff. It definitely makes kind of an impact. It makes you feel like kind of everybody's in this together. And then kind of using, we're very communicative in Slack, using it for work, but then also, for fun, we have a lot of random channels, looking at cats and things like that just makes it seem like you're not just at work. You can kind of share, things that you think are funny with other people and just kind of have a more relaxed kind of atmosphere around, which kind of seems to bring people together a little better.
There's one thing I was thinking also regarding your last question. When I'm thinking about Knogin, I was trying to think about why are people staying in our company, especially because we're pretty young, and also because we're in such a small country. I mean, we're 5 million people in Costa Rica, and they are we all know that cybersecurity talents, they're not that much out there, even less in Costa Rica. So why do we have we're very, and it's not because I'm working for this company, but we have very talented Costa Rican cybersecurity experts and just talented people in general. And I think there's one thing that we're doing very good. For example, we don't have a free lunch twice a week, and we still have extremely dedicated people, I guess. It's also because what I feel that is very different from the other companies I work in is that we value people and we let them know when they do a good job and not just when things go wrong. I heard many times from my superiors, well, very happy with what you've been doing so far. I'm also doing the same with my own team, telling them, look, for example, my graphic designers, they're fantastic workers. And I told them very often, recognizing that they're doing a good job. And I know that that's the way it's supposed to be, like we're all supposed to work and do a good job. But yet, when someone is telling you, I see it and I recognize it and I'm proud of you for that, it also really helps. I mean, that's what I heard from the girls that design and also our dev team and everything, that we recognize the work they're doing for the company.
Yeah, I mean, I think that goes into like retaining people as well as like how your company culture is, because a lot of large companies that probably don't think about it, I would say have kind of more of a toxic culture in that, if you work, I worked at a very large company once where you almost only talk to your manager when something had gone wrong. And so anytime you have a meeting, you already start kind of clamming up. You know you're going to get yelled at or something was wrong. You never get kind of that session of praise at all. And you never have like a good back and forth. It's just always, this is wrong, this is what you did. And it just kind of, it's a little demoralizing after a while.
That's not what we're doing at all. And again, we're very young, so there's no like ping pong table or whatever. And so how can you as a very young company or as a startup, like put into your employees' mind this sense of ownership when they don't have all these physical benefits that, for me, even more when there's so much work outside, it doesn't really matter for them to stay there just for free lunches. And the fact that we recognize them as human being and as good person, to me, really makes a difference. We know, and I know that I can go right now, talk to anyone, even from the top management, CTO, CEO, CO, I can text them right now, look, I need to talk. And there is 95% sure that they will say, yes, no problem, what is happening?
Yeah, so I think probably the key is nobody gets into trouble for making a mistake.
Exactly.
As long as you can move on, right? So take the blame, move on, and that's it. As opposed to saying, I don't want to get into trouble, she did it, and blame somebody else. So I think the blame game is probably the thing that, causes the most toxicity in a team and stops people working together. And doing, obviously, the opposite brings them closer as well.
And we're not scared of asking. I mean, I started this position as assistant marketing, now marketing manager, and there's tons of things I'm still learning and trying and figuring it out. And I can go to Ken, which is the CEO, and asking even like what could be a stupid question, and he will take the time to answer and will not make a comment of if it's like a very simple question or if it's something that is more complex. So that's also the space we have to just ask and grow. Also makes a big difference, I guess.
Great stuff. Yeah, so I mean, one of the other things I wanted to ask about was, there's a lot of talk online about, ninjas and rock stars and things like that.
Sorry, I shouldn't have rolled my eyes there, should I?
Oh my word. So I mean, I've had my few of my share of them as well in the past, and I find that having these types of people, while they might be good if you only have one person in the business, they're not good when you have more than one person. Simply because first of all, they're doing everything, and the problem with that is that it's difficult for them to hand anything over, and then it's difficult to know what they have done. So if they decide to move on, it's hard to know what to fix. But additionally to that, the rest of the team is kind of almost made to feel dumb, right? Like, they'll just give it to this guy, and he'll do all the work. And I find the contrary when you have really good people, but you don't hire those, rockstar branded. That actually teams are significantly more productive for not having those kinds of people within the team. So I don't know what your experience is with that too.
No, I mean, I think there's definitely always going to be room for, an individual contributor who is a rock star, who is amazing. But I think part of it is recognizing that and recognizing the limitations that having someone in that role puts on everyone else. And so I think part of the non-negotiables of the role is like, what are we really looking for? If we want someone who's very collaborative, if we want someone who is going to ultimately help to scale other people, that's when you're kind of looking at your hiring model and saying like, okay, we definitely do need someone in this, in this case. And if it does mean that it's important to hire a very highly skilled individual contributor that cannot manage a team, that's okay. But how can we then make sure that some of their contributions can also better reflect the culture in a different way? So how can they, lead training sessions? How can they show a few people in a different way how to, learn the skills, or basically show people how to learn these skills that they bring. So I think recognizing people for their strengths and what they can bring to the team as an individual, as a team lead, and then also just identifying other opportunities that you can always mirror the culture at the same time and still have really great talent.
You said it much more elaborately than me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
I mean, have you ever kind of run into it where you have maybe two candidates for a role and you have, one of those kind of rock star candidates that, you might have some issue kind of coming into the culture, or you have somebody who is going to be much more collaborative and you think will be an easier fit with the rest of the team, but might be a little bit junior to that other person, and mitigating well, which one do we really need now? And then kind of future thinking, what is going to be more, 6 months from now, what's going to be the better play? How is that something you kind of...
I go for the junior every time, simply because the power of the team is better than the power of the individual. There are, cases where the individual is good to have, but I haven't found very many of those. Maybe it's just my own experience, I don't know. But I find that, when you can promote within the team, people will love to learn. If people are doing a job that they love, they will just learn it all day and they'll do better, very quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I myself worked at a place where I was a very junior developer, hadn't really had a background in it at all, but I was given the space to learn from my peers and everything, and it does make a huge difference in giving you, it makes you want to do more, and kind of you do maybe eventually get more work out of that type of person who is trying to learn and trying to kind of keep up with everybody else and learning as much as they can from everybody. So it's always nice to hear that, those are the people that, you guys might be kind of on the lookout for, instead of somebody who's been doing this for years and years and might just be slightly difficult to work with.
But there's also, I see it, and it really start to be hard to handle for me. It's this kind of, with social media, especially now with LinkedIn, which is the major social media for professionals, and this trend of personal branding. And you have people selling themselves, promoting themselves, doing marketing for themselves. And I'm from marketing, so I don't know, I should maybe agree with that. But we're all human at the end of the day. I mean, you can have a lot of experience in something, it's fine. But when it starts to be really self-promotion and brand personal image, to me, it's just way too much. And I wouldn't like having this kind of superhero coming to our company just because everybody is good at something, and you can learn from everybody, like literally. So
there's always someone who's smarter than you,
yeah, exactly,
or anybody else.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, coming from, going back to retention and everything, being from kind of smaller companies, I mean, how do you keep up with benefits versus like a competitive salary that you're able to give out? I mean, you're not going to be able to provide the same things as like Amazon or like a Google or somebody like that. But, how do you try to mitigate what, you are able to provide to, make people, want to come and join, a smaller company that you might be a part of?
Yeah, I generally like to give a higher salary, because if I'm choosing what the benefit is for the person, like health insurance, for instance, maybe they have health insurance already, and maybe not paying $200 a month for that and just giving it to the employee will benefit them in another way, because maybe they can buy car insurance or some other thing with it, or they can just buy their own health insurance at a different rate, different package, whatever they want. So you're not kind of dictating to them what they should have in life. You're just giving them the money and enabling them to choose what they want to do.
Yeah, so it's a...
But I'm not a HR professional, so you
No,
would probably say it more
no,
elegantly
no.
and gracefully than me.
Well, I mean, I think it definitely comes back to culture and what we want to set as like, this is the baseline for what we'll definitely provide for you as anyone who wants to come to this company. And it's tricky because you want to make sure that your baseline benefits are what set you apart, but then are also at market with other competitors. And so there's even some, like, what are some low-hanging fruit that then you can add on top of that, or little things to set you apart? I mean, my favorite benefit that we added earlier this year was student loan repayment. And what it was is, it's $50 a month, and for like your first, you are eligible after your first 6 months with us, and then through 12 months we pay $50 towards your student loan, and then after that it's $100. So you look at that, and while it's totally optional to then increase people's salaries by, just add $1,200 to everybody's salary, it's not the same impact that's saying like, we recognize it as an organization that a lot of people have this kind of issue in their personal lives, and this is a relatively inexpensive way for us to recognize it, know our demographic, and say that we're going to take steps in order to help make this better for you.
That's a much better point.
I think it's an excellent insight that you're giving us. It's to basically not having these checking the boxes of the best benefits, if not more, know your employees and what they need, what they're looking for. For example, Costa Rica, we're having terrible traffic. But when I say terrible traffic, it's terrible traffic. People could spend hours in a car for a couple of kilometers. The fact that we can work 3 days from home, it's a huge advantage for all of our employees, because it fits with the situation that we're having in this country. So it's also, to us, actually having maybe free lunches for a week, as it's really not expensive to have food anywhere. So it's fine. It doesn't really matter. But having the 3 days from our home, that really makes an impact on someone's living in Costa Rica.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's just really an understanding what's important. And part of the reason that we have lunch is basically because we had to know our geographic area too. There just weren't that many lunch options available. And even now you have to drive at least a mile in order to get something. And so it's an option for people. They don't have to eat it. Sure, they can go out anytime they want, but it is an option for them to not have to go and kind of search for something in the middle of the day and just hang.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nice. It's kind of become part of our, the company culture is that, we coincide them with our all hands, but sometimes our all hands is just kind of go sit with somebody that you don't usually talk to in a different team, that you don't speak to all the time. Sit and we did 3 fun facts a couple weeks ago, where you just had to write 3 fun facts about yourself on a card. You put it in a hat, and then everybody drew, and then you were trying to figure out who that was. So you're just learning, little tidbits here and there about, the people that you work with, and just kind of, just keeping everything kind of light and fresh, and not, just we're here for a meeting. This is, which a lot of places kind of do.
Mm-hmm. We do all hands. So we do have twice weekly all hands. And so for the most part, it is talking like greater strategy, some big initiatives that are happening, or really highlighting some of the team's achievements. So, for example, next week, we're going to be talking to customer success to hear about some of their most recent on-site onboardings. And it's just a way to really understand how we're connecting with the customers. But then, yeah, to Tommy's point, we mix in fun ones there too. We had a Halloween costume contest a couple weeks ago that ended in a dance-off. Mm-hmm. There was a trophy involved. It was pretty intense. You can check it out on Instagram.
Yeah, it's on our Instagram.
But yeah, he and I also one time did trivia. And we did people-based trivia. So we went around and asked certain people certain questions and then had everybody vote. And I think that those kinds of little things too, increase the camaraderie and just kind of it cracks people up. And I love that. I think that's my favorite part of coming to work and leaving each day, is knowing that I cracked up at least once during the day. I need that.
It's good to go home with a happy face, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. To feel good. You were talking about it at lunches. There's nothing worse than waking up and dreading going to the office when you just don't like your job, or you don't like your workplace or the people you work with. It really does kind of drain on you. So it is nice to, be at a place that you end up having fun, a couple times throughout the day. You enjoy the people that you work with and you enjoy your workplace kind of overall is always a great feeling, and definitely just adds, to most people's lives. It just kind of makes it a little better than disliking where you have to go every day for 8 or 9 hours.
And I think that's the most important kind of thing about work is there to improve your life, not to provide food, right? It shouldn't be there just as a food provider. It's to improve your life so you can, win enough money to do the things that you like, while doing things that you don't hate, I guess, and hopefully things that you actually like as well.
And get to learn.
Learn. Exactly.
There's also one thing that I guess really matter at Knogin is the fact that we have we're very open to, let's say, cross talents. I don't know if you can say that in English, but basically we have this new QAA engineer, junior engineer, and it happened that she is also a Scrum expert.
A Scrum Master.
A Scrum Master. Yes. And which is it's a process.
It's a type of project management.
Exactly, type of project management. And she entered a couple of weeks ago as a Q&A junior. And we immediately, her boss immediately gave her the possibility to teach all the other employees about that. And the fact that we give, people have many talents that we might not know. We have our junior graphic designer that is actually extremely competent in cybersecurity, and she knows about that. So now she's completely in charge of the UX UI of our software. And she was supposed to go there just for graphic design to do ads or banners or whatever. And so she moved, and now she's really just in charge of that. So the fact that we're giving this space to people so that they can explore others area that were not defined at the very beginning is, I think, also something great.
I think it also gives us another benefit, which brings us back right to the very beginning, which is we've been looking for project managers for ages. We hadn't found any suitable for what we need. And then someone applies for a QA job and we find, hey, she's a Scrum Master. It's like, oh my God, after all this time, this is now brilliant. I guess you got to give people space and let them do what they do. And,
this is what I'm telling you. I love doing podcasts.
There you go.
I think that's a huge part of retention too, is, giving people the ability to maybe grow into another role, or giving them a roadmap on what they can, become. That's a huge part of Cybrary's kind of main mission is, that, where you work or something might not be giving you kind of the roadmap, but, with Cybrary, you can kind of use it and start learning your way and kind of getting to, what we always call is your next level. It's you might be starting here as a junior developer or something like that, but you can kind of learn and keep going, so that you have that opportunity the next time it comes up at your company or something. Because a lot of times, you work places where they don't provide any forward movement. You don't really see, where you might be able to go. It's always seems like a bunch of lateral movements, but it's if I don't have anywhere to go up, what am I really doing here? So it's always, as, being, head of people and the CEO, how do you, make sure that people understand? Obviously you guys are doing a great job with, letting people kind of fill certain roles and kind of grow into them. How do you mitigate that and make sure that people understand, you might be starting here, but where you end, could be anywhere?
I think part of it is giving them the opportunity to also search. What do you want to be doing? And kind of give them the reins a little bit, because sure, there's going to be the job that needs to get done, but how can you add to your plate a little bit? So I was a waitress for a very long time, 6 or 7 years. And so I kind of like to use this analogy of, when you're doing your initial job, you have like a 3-table section, but then as you get better, you get 4 tables, you get 5 tables, you get 6-table sections. So all of a sudden, it's you're handling a lot more tables than you ever had before. And that's the same thing with the opportunities, at least at Cybrary, and what I've seen in my previous role at another startup, where do the job at hand, but take on more. And then all of a sudden, what you're going to see is the opportunity to move into that other space, because you've created it, you've carved it out. Ideally, with the support of management, of leadership in general.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yes.
You didn't even need me in this podcast. I don't know why I was invited.
Yeah. I feel that way most times. Well, yeah, I thank you all for being here. It was a really great conversation to go around and get kind of some differing opinions, and seeing what other companies are doing and providing. I think is a great way to learn. So thank you all for being here, and thanks everybody for listening.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.